What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I found an interesting video that talks about some of the different options when it comes to Social Security reform. And so I'm going to show you guys this clip, and we're going to talk about this because I think these are some real good options that are out there. At least I'll say some of them are good options. Some of them aren't. And I'll talk a little bit about why I think some of them aren't when we watch the video. But this is a good step in the right direction when it comes to having a discussion about Social Security reform. We know that something needs to happen. We only have about 10 years before the trust funds run out of money. When the trust funds run out of money, that means about a 23% decrease in Social Security benefits. So something needs to be done. Congress is going to need to act very, very soon when it comes to this. And the fact that you have people talking about this is a good thing. The more education, the more information that you know when it comes to Social Security and how Social Security can be reformed, the better off you'll be, because you'll be able to inform others as well as talk to Congress people and tell them, look, something needs to be done. Why don't you try this option, or why don't you try this option? So let's go ahead and take a look. But before we do, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification, clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. And just a reminder, thank you for your support. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Threads, you can at the TEC Show Live. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to show you guys. This is Fox Business, and this video clip was posted about 3 or 4 months ago. So we're going to go ahead and take a look. Here we go.
Social Security is making headlines as the day of reckoning inches closer. New estimates show that by 2034, the combined retirement and disability trust fund will have to cut benefits. That's 1 year earlier than previously projected. So Barron's takes a look, Al, at 3 different possible ways to attack this problem. Yep. Let's start with the conservative approach recommended by the American Enterprise Institute. It's interesting because it combines means testing with private accounts that would be invested in the markets.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to call it the conservative approach. Andrew Biggs over there, it's sort of a two-pronged. So on one hand, mandated savings. So 3% mandated in savings for employees into an employer-sponsored account like a 401k. And if there's none of those options available, you put it into a government-sponsored plan. It's like bringing defined contribution to Social Security.
But importantly, it invests in the markets, which we don't currently do.
Exactly. And then on the other side, there is this idea of means testing. So raising the minimum benefit for low earners and cutting back the benefit for high earners. So it sounds a lot like prior plans, which is this sort of hybrid of market-based private accounts and means testing. That makes it a pretty difficult sell, but you know, it feels like it would work if you could get people to agree to it.
Okay, so I want to stop right there. We want to talk a little bit about this. I don't want to go too far ahead, but so he's talking about the conservative approach. So he basically is talking about what Republicans support currently. So the means testing, we've heard about this before. Chris Christie's running for president. He's talked about this a lot when it comes to means testing. This would be a tough sell because what you're saying is people who are on the higher end of that spectrum that are receiving Social Security would have to give up some of their benefits to help people who are at the lower end of the spectrum and receiving Social Security. So it would be it's a hard thing to do because now you're taking money from people who are at the higher end of that spectrum receiving Social Security. And just because you're at the higher end of that spectrum receiving Social Security doesn't mean you're well off. It just means that you're receiving more in Social Security benefits, but that's not including all the other contributions that you're receiving. So we don't know if you have a 401k. We don't know all the different money that you have coming in. You might not have anything coming in. You might just have Social Security. And so even if you're at that higher end of the spectrum, if you're not receiving if you don't have a 401k, if you don't have anything else, then you're probably still going to be around 50,000, 55,000. That's what you're bringing in. And that's still not, I mean, in a lot of situations, that's still not going to work. And if you're in a major city, 55,000 doesn't go that far. And so you would be asking those people to take a pay cut to help the people who are at the lower end of the spectrum. So I don't know how that would work. I don't know if you're going to have a lot of people that would buy into that, people that are receiving Social Security, they would buy into that. And even if you're not at the highest end of the spectrum, you could be at the higher end, but let's say instead of, $4,555 is the highest amount that you can receive in Social Security currently, but let's say you're getting about $3,500. Does that mean that you're going to get less because of the formula that they would use in order to calculate and do the means test? So this is something that, I mean, the examples that are used, and Chris Christie uses this example all the time. He says Warren Buffett doesn't need Social Security. I would agree, and I would even think that Warren Buffett agrees that he doesn't need Social Security, but Warren Buffett is that at the 1%. What about the people who aren't at the 1%? What about the people who are just, they worked hard, they earned their Social Security, and they want their Social Security, they want to get that benefit, and now they're going to see a cut in those benefits. So it would be hard for them to really justify doing that, I think, in my opinion. Now, when we talk about the private savings, I would have to know more information about that, but Republicans have talked about not just a private savings, but having some type of a private Social Security account, basically investing your money. And he talked a little bit about investing your money. My concern when it comes to that, he even used the example of 3%. My concern is that 3% coming from the payroll tax, because if it's coming from the payroll tax, that means that money will be set aside and will not go to the Social Security Administration to help pay for benefits that people are currently receiving. That is the danger when you're looking at these private funds, because if you're going to invest the money has to be somewhere where it can't be touched. Because if the Social Security Administration gets it, they're going to use it to pay current benefits. And so if you're taking 3% out of the equation, that's going to mean that the trust funds will be depleted much sooner. So I don't really see that as a viable option. Now, like I said, I don't know all the details on what he was talking about there. And if you have an additional 3%, so you're still paying, the employer's paying 6.2%, you're paying 6.2% into the payroll tax, and then in addition to that, you're paying another 3% that's mandated. You have to put that 3% in. Then that's one thing. But if you're taking that 3% from the 6.2% that you're already contributing, now we have an issue, because now that money is not going to be going to the Social Security Administration to help people that are currently receiving Social Security. Okay, let's go ahead and continue.
Because people don't like the idea of cutting benefits. They say, I paid into the system, I want every penny back. It's tough to get past that.
Yeah, I think that's very difficult politically, but,
And then one other problem, just logistically, which is right now it's a pay-as-you-go system. Our payments are going to our parents, basically.
Yeah.
If you diverted our payments into the markets, I think that would be great. But the problem is, where's the cash flow?
you're basically
There you go. Exactly what I was saying.
describing the problem. You're trying to solve something with no pain for anyone, and that's like threading a needle.
Speaking of no pain for anyone, Carlton, on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats would like to see expanded benefits. Gives a sense of what they're talking about.
No, you can understand why you would want to see expanded benefits. One, people are living longer. We don't have as many pensions as we had before, and also inflation is making it difficult for people to save. So all reasonable reasons to expand benefits, but it comes down to how do you pay for it? So maybe a great idea, but how do you pay for it? What the Democrats are proposing might lead to about $200 a month in additional benefits for individuals and families. But the problem is that increases that shortfall that we've been talking about by 43%. So to pay for that, we're talking higher taxes, where some taxes on some investment income going up by about 12%. And then also just like other caps on the FICO and FICA taxes being lifted as well.
Alrighty. So both of these ideas, probably DOA.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what she's saying. So she's talking about the raising the cap. She's talking about getting money. So basically payroll tax, she focused on that as well. Raising the payroll tax, maybe raising the cap so the people who are making $160,200 or more will have to pay into the payroll tax. So that's what she's talking about there, and that would provide that $200 raise per month for people receiving Social Security. Now, also, is that enough? Is it just raising the payroll tax? Is it enough to compensate for the $200 per month raise? And if it's not enough, then that means the trust fund is still going to be an issue, and the trust fund could be depleted much faster if they go ahead and move forward with this. So that's something else to think about. They have to know what the numbers look like, because if they don't and they make a mistake, then we're still going to be seeing a situation where you might get $200 extra a month for, let's say, 10 years. And then at the end of that 10 years, we're looking at the same situation when it comes to the trust funds running out of money, and then you could see a 23% decrease in your payments. And so that would be, that would be really, really hard for a lot of people. So that's why they have to thread the needle. They have to do it the right way. And so that's why we're looking at these different options that are out there. Obviously, Senator Bernie Sanders has his plan. You have Representative Larson that has the Social Security 2100 Act. You have politicians that have put proposals forward, but when it comes down to it, nothing has really resonated with the majority of Congress people. You don't have like a bipartisan plan that's been put together where both sides can get on board. Now, at the very end of this clip, he is going to talk about what is kind of the middle of the road approach. So let's go ahead and continue. Here we go.
But Ben, a compromise hypothetically is possible without too much pain, or one might say reasonable pain, if everybody is willing to compromise.
Right. I mean, there's some pretty reasonable tweaks here that can be made. You basically go ahead and you start taxing people who make $400,000 or more on that money. That's going to help close the shortfall by 64%.
Okay, now it's important to listen to what he's saying here. So just raising the cap so that 400,000 people making 400,000 or more, they have to continue to pay into the payroll tax. Okay, so basically, if you make 160,200, and this is current, these numbers will go up to 168,600 in 2024. But if we're just looking at right now, if you make 160,200, you no longer have to pay into the payroll tax. And so what they would do is they would say, okay, they would continue honoring that. So you won't have to pay into the payroll tax if you make 160,200 until you get up to 400,000. And so once you get to 400,000, then you're going to have to pay into the payroll tax again. So basically, if you make less than 160,200, all of that money goes to the payroll tax. And if you make over $400,000, all of that money also goes into the payroll tax. Now that will help the trust fund by about 64%. So you see, that is the bulk. So that, I mean, if you're looking at, okay, what do we need to do in order to make this work when it comes to Social Security reform? That's something that needs to be done because it is over, it's over 50% of the money that you can collect will come from that. And so that's why it's important to know the percentage of impact that this would have. 64% is a huge impact in helping Social Security. Okay, let's continue.
Then you increase the overall payroll tax by 1 percentage point from 12.4% to 13.4%. That's split evenly between employees and employers.
Okay, so 1%, so 1% increase across the board when it comes to the payroll tax. So I think that's good.
That's going to cut it down by another 26%. And then you go.
And then he's saying, I know I keep stopping it, but I just want to make sure you guys are catching everything he's talking about here. He's saying that would, if you're looking at the numbers, that would be about 24%. And so if you just raise the cap on people making 400,000 or more, that's 64%. And then another 26% would be from just raising the payroll tax across the board, 1%.
Go ahead and you raise the retirement age by 1 year to 68 from 67. That would close 12% of the shortfall. And none of that should really be all that controversial, because if Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill could do this back in 1983, there's no reason that politicians today couldn't come to some similar agreement.
Just to explain, right now you stop paying these FICA taxes at about $160,000. Right. The idea is that above that would still be untaxed until you hit 400. Anybody right. that income over 400 would be taxed. That would not be indexed for inflation. 160 is. So over the decades, that would actually close. Everyone would pay FICA on all of their Carlton, let's change it slightly to this issue that you get nasty emails about. We all get the occasional nasty email about, which is the question of when to take Social Security. There's lots of disagreement unless you go to the math, which is pretty clear, frankly. Right.
So the math, which this should apply to most people, not everyone, I realize that to my email box, if anyone wants to send anything, is wait as long as you can. When you reach full retirement age, you get 100% of your benefit. Waiting a little bit longer, that can add a few $100s to your monthly benefit. So wait as long as you can. Everyone's situation is different, but the math says to wait.
Okay, so that was an interesting discussion. I think they laid out pretty much the options that we're looking at right now. And the best option right now, I think, is kind of a little bit of both. Now, raising the full retirement age, he did talk about that, raising the full retirement age to 68 instead of 67, where it is currently. And that would have an impact of about 12%. So looking at everything, I think raising the full retirement age 1 year is not really going to hurt people that much. If they really want to push raising the full retirement age, I think when it comes to the payroll tax, people making $400,000 or more, I think that is something that should be done, because I think that's going to really impact the Social Security program the most. So let's say you don't do anything, but you just raise the cap. Well, if that has a 64% impact, that means it will prolong Social Security. So the trust funds will be able to do better for a longer period of time. It might be 10 years more. So it might be, we're looking at 10 years now. It might be an additional 10 years. So we might be looking at 20 years, and they might have to look at it again after that 20-year period. Or they can do a little bit more by pulling in the payroll tax across the board and raising the full retirement age to 68. And then that will solidify Social Security for 75 more years or what have you. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I'm just giving you guys an example there. So I think all in all, the options that are out there, there's some good options that are out there. There are also some bad options that are out there. My main concern is when they start talking about privatizing Social Security and things like that, where you're taking money from the Social Security Administration. That is not going to be good for those people who are currently receiving Social Security. And it's also not going to be good for the trust funds, because the trust funds will deplete a lot sooner because there's less money going to the Social Security Administration, and that money that didn't go to the Social Security Administration, it's being invested in the stock market, which is risky. So you could lose money on that. So you could be in a situation where you think you're doing good, but if our economy is not doing well and the stock market's not doing well, then you could be losing money that would normally have gone to Social Security. So I want to know what you guys think about all this. So let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.